Now the way to correct that is you have to make a creative decision about at which point in the camera's animation as it follows the car would be the ideal position to kind of have the camera leveled up. And I'd already experimented with this earlier, but if we were to play this animation and then stop it just when we get right about out here, let's just put it right in this location here, maybe move just a little bit farther so we can see the car through the trees. This is really the ideal place to level up. That way we're not drawn to the obvious that the horizon here is tilted nearly 45 degrees. What we really want is a nice level horizon, so we're kind of splitting the difference on the amount of tilt that this camera will have as it follows the car all the way around. So how do we go about setting this? Well, there's a couple of ways to do it. The one way you could do it is with the tilt controls here, where you can actually tilt the camera that you have selected. So if I were to use these here, you can see that when I click on this, it jumps me back to the beginning of the frame. And by jumping me back to the beginning of the frame, I'm no longer able to see the angle that I want to look at as I'm adjusting. So that's because we only have one scene marker for the entire animation. If it was a short marker followed by other markers, we could easily pick the marker in here that was closest to the point we wanted, and we could make the adjustment there. But even then, you would have the problem of many markers. Each one, remember, is basically setting a keyframe, and then when you set the next marker, it sets another keyframe, and then it will attempt as the animation plays to interpolate the rotation, zoom, position of the object that is on that track according to how each one of those keyframes was set, and it will try and interpolate all the infinite points in between them to try and give you a smooth transition from one scene marker to the settings given for the second or third or fourth scene marker in the sequence, each one set up by the previous. So we can't use the method that I was going to talk to you about because we only have one scene marker here. So I'm going to show you another approach to use. So the first thing that I want to do, let's go ahead and find that location again. Now I could do the same thing just by scrolling along the timeline here, and this time I'll just do that. And we'll pick the point where we can see the car just through the trees, and our horizon is canted to its maximum at this point. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set our free camera momentarily to be the same as the onboard camera that we're now using. So with our onboard camera selected, this is what we see. And by pressing this button right here, this will take all of the settings for the onboard camera and copy them over to the free camera and put us into the free camera. So I'll press that button now, and you don't see any change in the view, but now we're in the free camera. And because we're in the free camera, now it's possible to adjust some of the behaviors of that camera. Now, if I were to use these controls here, these will not affect my free camera. For example, if I use this one, when I click on it, it now realizes that I'm using the free camera, and so it immediately got rid of the two green controls at the bottom, because those, as you'll recall, only apply to the onboard cameras. So that's exactly what you would expect it to do. Now at this point, if I wanted, I could use these to tilt this camera because this camera is selected. So I could do that by using these, but you'll notice that I can't see what's happening, and the reason for that is because our onboard camera is not selected. So we're not looking at the world through the onboard camera. We're looking at the world through our free camera, which means now that if I switch back to our onboard camera, the tilt is even greater than it was before. As you'll recall, I'd pulled this tilt control down, and when I did, it rotated us. So this is really not the way to set that camera the way that we want to set it. So what we'll do now is we'll come back in our timeline to a point where the car is visible in the scene, just viewable through the trees will be fine. And now that we've done that, I'm going to switch back to our free camera. And then what I want to do is I want to set the free camera so that the horizon is basically level. Now, one easy way of doing that would be to just double click on the car. Because the car is on the scene, the camera is going to try and orient itself to give us the best possible view of that, which means that we'll basically be looking at it with a camera that is set up specifically optimized for this view, so it gives us a nice level horizon at this point. And then what we need to do is to take this free camera setting and pass it to our onboard camera. And that's how we're going to get our onboard camera to be perfectly level when we're at this place in the animation. So I'll simply press this button here, and when I do, it now makes our onboard camera exactly where we want it to be. Now if I go back to the very beginning of the animation by pressing the stop button here, which will just move us back to the beginning, you can now see the car, and when I press the play button, you'll see that as the camera tracks the car, it reaches this point right now where the scene is level, and then it maintains a reasonable amount of levelness as it continues to follow the car all the way around. And so we have now in effect accomplished what we wanted to accomplish in our first step here, and that is to get this camera properly configured so that any time we switch to it, we can catch it wherever it happens to be in the process of following the car during the course of this animation.